Then of course, our distribution area here, sand, topsoil cover. These slopes are dictated. The steeper this slope that you have on the ground here, the longer this toe becomes. Because we know that as water goes down in through the distribution and you're on a sloped ground, you're going to have more water movement horizontally in that situation versus level ground. So you'll see these toes growing on the downslope side as there's more slope. All right, let's dig in. I know you can't hardly see this, but I only wanted to point out a few things on this chart here. I'm not going to get into, and I've done it in a few meetings in the past, on how we go about sizing the linear loading rate and basal loading rates. Suffice it to say, we use the Tyler table and we use the soil reports to do it. And I wanted to point out here, I know you can barely read it, this is the layer I pointed out in red that is the issue. The soil scientist has noted it by BX, that means fragipan. And he also notes that there is this is modeling right here in this column, and the firmness. So down here he has summarized and said this particular site, this sample site we're going to go over today, is 17 inches to the seasonal perched water table and the limiting soil layer. So in the site we do today, we're going to be looking at this 17-inch depth. Of course, the other parameters that we have, the linear loading rate and basal loading rates are based upon the texture and the structure. So the silt loam and how loose is that silt loam. So anyway, just to give you at least a brief overview of where that comes from. Man, it's terrible. Here's our site we're going to be working on today. The topography generally slopes this direction, as you can see. I can see it, but you can't, but there is a test hole right there. And
Did you change that color of your spotter? I can't see anything.
This spotter?
Colorblind.
I'm sorry, I got red. That's all I got. I won't use it much.
Use your finger.
Use your finger. Let's see. Anyway, right here is a test hole. Right there is a test hole, and there is a test hole. Okay. That's our site topography. I can't recall how many acres this is. I think it's 7 or so acres. So anyway, can you see the red line there, Marty? No, you can't see this?
That's black.
Okay.
What it is out.
All right, forget that. All right. So this is what the designer received from us. The sewage treatment system evaluation is based on the soil test that I just showed you, and the topography, looking over the drainage of the site, making sure everything's in order. So this is the part that we're going to focus on right here, the middle where the red or black, depending on who you are, line is, and that is the estimated flow. It's a 2-bedroom house, 240 gallons per day. Minimum length was based on the Tyler table, 100 feet. And the minimum absorptive area was 800 square feet. And we noted right here, depth to the limiting layer is 17 inches. So now the designer should have enough information to begin doing his design for the mound. And I summarized over on the left there the Tyler table and how we derive that information. I did want to go over briefly, I touched on it before, the options here. We do have some options. One option you may choose, because it's 17 inches restricting layer, the minimum, maybe the chalkboard would help. So we have a restricting layer at 17 inches. One option, a fairly common option the person may choose, is to put that cistern, that leach trench, partially in the ground, 5 inches. The minimum separation from this limiting condition to the bottom of the trench, bottom of the absorptive area, is 12 inches, no matter what you do, with an aerator. So this is pre-treated. Okay, so pre-treated. If you don't pre-treat, it's 24 inches on this particular condition, on this soil condition. What's that mean to you? That means that this trench profile is 8 inches, right? That means you're going to have 3 inches of cover just to get your trench to the top, and then another 6 inches of cover on top of that. So you have a total of 9 inches of cover to add to this site. Now you've got however many more leach lines. And you got to cover the whole thing. So this is where some people make these decisions. I got an add narrator, I got a pre-treat. Next thing I got to do, I got to put all this cover over top of it. Where's the point where this and the cover cost more than the mount? That's normally where the decision comes in. Or maybe the homeowner says, I don't want that. Okay, do mount. So you could do, as option number 1 there, you could do leach lines 5 inches in the ground, or mound, or if you really were feeling adventurous, you could do drip irrigation. Normally people don't choose that. So let's get started with designing, now that I've given you a little bit of an introduction. I want to show you where you can get some forms at. Everything I'm going to go over today, you can download these forms on how you do design work. This is on Ohio Department of Health's website. So when you get there, you can look under their forms. And we scroll to the bottom here, you see various links. System design. If you link on that system design, it'll pull up a page that you can link to all sorts of design manuals. And we're going to use several of these today. So I want to make sure, I don't expect you to leave here knowing step by step how to do it, because I don't think that's my goal. My goal is, I've seen that before, I kind of get the concept now, and I know where to go to get the manuals to do it. You're not going to leave here knowing and memorize all this information. So these are the ones that we normally use. OSU Bulletin 813. A lot of you probably have these. But Mound Systems for On-Site Wastewater Treatment Bulletin 813 OSU Bulletin. Karen Mansell wrote this document. This is by and large what we use for just the layout of the mound. How much fill, how much sand, how high, how long. Bulletin 829. That is her companion document for pressure distribution design. It goes right along, they go hand in hand, they go together when you're doing design work. I personally prefer, instead of Karen Mansell's design for pressure distribution, a man named James Condors put out a document called Pressure Distribution Design. The nice thing about his document is Karen only uses 1/4-inch holes. That's it. He uses other hole size options. So he's got other information that you can use. I think it's a little easier. Some of his numbers are a little more conservative, so that when it all boils down, you can actually get on the pump specking a little more conservative design, which normally isn't a big deal. I personally prefer that document for pressure. And then the other thing I have that was given to us, I think we got it in a Advantex, they give out their literature, we got a copy of it. And inside of there was a CD for designing LPP systems, and it's been very handy. It was free, it was very handy. So if you can get your hands on some of those, you'll see the value of it here shortly. All right, so we're going to get started with our design. Here's the mound system. If you recall, the slope again was sloping, not yet, in that direction. And this designer, of course, he took the invert readings, ground level readings, and he took this all back to the office and began to design. So let's get started. Now this is our sample design here. Let me go ahead and this is where we're going to struggle, because I'm going to have to go back and forth, and maybe Jason, you can help me out here, flip some of these pages. I'm going to try to follow the manual and then go step by step through the manual, but I don't want to make this too boring. Some of the stuff in the beginning of the manual pertains to things you don't even have to worry about. So for the example, here, determine wastewater loading rate. Well, we already told you what that is. 120 gallons per day per bedroom. Bingo, you got it. Linear loading rate. We're going to give you that on the site evaluation form. So you're just going to, very quickly, if you follow her manual, you're going to jump all the way to several steps ahead. Okay, I want want to point this out and then we'll get into the calculations. The sand loading rate is one thing she talks about. See, select sand fill loading rate. It's 1. It makes it easy. You'll see that here in a minute. It's 1. That number they give you in this manual, 1, is based on using concrete sand. That most ag suppliers can sell you concrete sand. I think it's 0.15 to 3 millimeters in size, and I think it's uniformity coefficient of 4, something like that. If you're using concrete sand, it makes this equation a lot easier. If you're trying to use something else, it gets a little more hairy. Just know that that's what that's based on, concrete sand. And when you go and you're designing and you're installer and you're a little curious about the sand you're getting, we can look up, in fact, we recommend, if you're going to install a mound, go to your gravel company, get their last testing that they've done on their sand, send it to us, and we can tell you if it meets the specifications spelled out in the regulations and in these design manuals. Their testing we can quickly go through it and tell that it meets the criteria.
Generally ask for a sieve analysis.
A sieve analysis, right.
They should have.
Exactly. And some doesn't. There's some local that does not meet. It's a little sloppy sand, so it's got a lot of fines in it. You're not going to want that. You're going to plug things up and use the fine sand. All right, Jason, we'll let you take over here. You just hit the back. Yep, good. All right,
Scroll down there.
All right, guys. Step by step. All right. We're going to start with just determining the width of the mound. You can see, I won't redraw this picture. You can see it over there. Her example has the 4 feet, so we're going to use the number we had on this design plan. So the distribution area width equals the lineal loading rate divided by the sand loading rate. We gave you the lineal loading rate, 2.4. Divided by, what did I just say the sand loading rate is? 1. Life's easy, 2.4. If you get a worse sand and you start getting into 0.5, things get weird. Okay? So, if you use the sand spec'd out, you simply are saying the distribution area width is the same as the lineal loading rate you're done. Easy calculation. So far our mound distribution area is 2.4 feet long. Okay, go ahead and flip it over there. Okay, length. How do we determine the length of the distribution area? Equals the daily design flow divided by the lineal loading rate. So the daily design flow in our 2-bedroom house is 240. Divided by the lineal loading rate, which was 2.4, equals 100 feet. Distribution area, 2.4 feet wide, 100 feet long.